Mel Kiper Jr. released his latest mock draft today, and he has the Los Angeles Chargers taking an interesting player at pick number 22. Now, it's important to note that this is only a first-round mock draft for Kiper and for the Chargers, but the player that he has LA taking has a lot of upside, but it does kind of feel like a high-risk, high-reward type of player. Who's that player? I'll let you know in just a sec. This is Chargers Now. I am your host, Will Ortner. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on today's video because you love the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to be diving into Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, and he has the Chargers addressing one of the key needs for this ball club. When we look at the Chargers' needs right now, it's very clear that interior offensive line, edge rusher, interior defensive line, and safety are the big needs for this team in Los Angeles. Now, it's also important to note that it feels like there's a couple different avenues that the Chargers can go down, specifically with interior offensive line and interior defensive line. Edge rusher, it does feel like they're kind of caught in no man's land where they're not high up enough to go and get one of the premier edge rushers, while also at the same time, they're not far enough back to make sense to go after a kid like Young over at Missouri. When we look at the Chargers draft picks for the 2026 NFL draft, obviously there's a lot of room here for the Chargers to go in and make a move and get a big-time player. When we look at Kiper's draft, though, we're only going to be looking at pick number 22. So who does Kiper have the Chargers taking in that spot? It's a fascinating player out of Clemson. Interior defensive lineman Peter Woods, the 6'3", 315-pound Alabama native. The guy is an absolute stud. And going into the year, if I told you at pick 22 that the Chargers were going to get Woods, you would have said, oh my goodness, that is a home run draft pick. It couldn't get any better. Why did he drop? Well, the problem is he dropped a little bit because some of the performance on the field wasn't great for Woods or really for, frankly, anyone on that Clemson Tigers team, but that doesn't mean that he still doesn't have a lot of upside and someone that could easily add into this team. Mel Kiper Jr. had this to say on Peter Woods. After the Chargers attacked their interior offensive line problem before free agency even opened, they can turn their attention to the defensive line and a high upside player such as Woods in the first round. Some teams would be worried about his lack of production last season, 2 sacks, but his potential is robust as an NFL 3 technique. He can add some punch to the Chargers' defensive front as a penetrating interior havoc-wreaker. Now, the question is, do I end up liking this pick? And as we go through this rest of the video, I'll kind of give you a conversation about why I may or may not like this pick for the Los Angeles Chargers. When I look at the top 5 interior defensive linemen for Kiper, Peter Woods is not the number 1 player that he has listed. Kayden McDonald of Ohio State is his number 1. Lee Hunter, Caleb Banks, and Christian Miller round out the rest of the top 5 around Peter Woods. So he does have the Chargers going out and getting one of the top interior defensive linemen, but not necessarily the top defensive lineman. So who were the players drafted from that interior defensive line? Because that means Peter Woods must have been the second guy taken, right? Well, not exactly. So Woods ends up actually being the first guy drafted. In fact, Miller, the guy who was 5th on the interior defensive line list, ends up actually being pick number 28. So he's actually the second interior defensive lineman that was drafted. Now, I think the reasoning behind this is because the Chargers are in a position where they can swing big here for Woods. Woods would end up dropping a little bit in the draft to get to the Chargers, and he's the type of player that could add into Coach O'Leary's defense and be a big-time performer if he lives up to everything that he was supposed to be. The question is, will he? Grade Mel Kiper Jr.'s latest mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F, down below in the comment section. Do you like that Kiper had Woods going at pick number 22 to this Chargers team? Let me know loud and proud. I think right now we're going to go with a B. I think it's a solid B. I still would go for the interior offensive line, but that's just me. Now, when we look at the 2025 stats here for Woods, obviously it was I would say, a halfway decent year for an interior defensive lineman. But it is important to note how well that Woods had played previously. Before we get into that, though, I will make sure that we really talk about the lack of production after a year that had been so exquisite for Woods. You can see here between 24 and 25, his tackles for loss go drastically down. When you look at the total tackles, you're going to say, oh, Woods' tackle number went up. It actually went down if you look at solo tackles. So he was diving in on a lot of these plays. The pressures went drastically down for Woods, and he only got 2 sacks. Now, you're not looking for big sack numbers from a 3 technique in the National Football League, but it still should have been a lot higher for a player like Woods, who came into the year being projected as the top interior defensive lineman. He was someone that was even projected to end up being a top 10, possibly top 5 pick in this draft. So the fact that last year was a little bit disappointing is why he ended up dropping down a little bit. Does this mean that the Chargers should not take him? I would say no, because when you look at the upside that Woods has, the potential is clearly there. And hopefully after a year where he was a little bit less than stellar, maybe there is a fire that is lit underneath him. It's also important to note that when you look at a player like Woods, he's playing at Clemson, where there was really a down year for almost everyone there on that program. So the question might necessarily not be at Woods of why was the production down, but it could potentially go to the program as a whole. If everyone's playing poorly, well, then maybe that says something more about what's going on in the coaching staff. When we look at the Chargers' interior defensive line depth chart right now, it's very clear to me that Woods would instantly add into this crew. One, because he's someone that could give Tart a little bit of a breather, but he becomes more of an amoeba type of player. He can play that 3 technique at that defensive tackle. He could also play that nose guard spot if you wanted to get to a smaller crew. If you wanted to be with a bigger crew, Woods could instantly play at that defensive end spot as well. He's the type of player that has all the intangibles. He has all of the potential. He's the type of player that could add into this crew and make them one of the best interior defensive lines in the entire National Football League. We just saw the Seahawks win a Super Bowl because they had players in Leonard Williams, in Byron Murphy, and even in Jarran Reed that were making big-time plays on that interior defensive line. It's the same defense. It's the same scheme. It's the same style. Woods could become that Byron Murphy type of player or that Leonard Williams type of player. The question is, will he? This is a high-risk, high-reward type of situation. And I think the reason that Kiper's okay with the Chargers making this move is because for them, it's a little bit of a lower risk. Obviously, you still need interior defensive line help, but it's not the most pressing need for you. You're getting a guy who has the potential, and if he lived up to his entire talent during his college football career, would be a top 10 pick. But you're getting him at pick number 22, and you're getting a guy who has shown that even on his low end, he's still a pretty damn good player and someone who would be a pretty damn good pro. But if you believe that he can reach the heights that everyone else believes he can reach, why not go make that pick there? Especially if someone like Vega Ione is already drafted, which in Mel Kiper Jr.'s draft, he already was. What position group do you believe that the Chargers need to target in the 2026 NFL draft? I think there are a couple of different spots. I personally believe that if Vega Ione is on the board, he has to be your number 1 pick. So that does mean interior offensive line, but I'm not always right. Let me know what your opinion is down below in the comment section. Like I said earlier, if you love the LA Chargers, you're going to love our content. So hit that thumbs up button. If you want more mock drafts in the build-up to the NFL draft, you want to know who the Chargers could and are targeting, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button. That lets us know what we need to do. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're small, but we're mighty, and we are growing. Trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. You can help us out by hitting that sub button. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. We always really appreciate it, and I promise I won't give you any bad Mel Kiper Jr. impersonations here. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and bolt up.